What's going on, people? Today was not as clean of a bounce as one might have expected. We alerted some calls last night for Microsoft and Netflix. Those did not work out, but then later on during the day, or earlier on in the day, I alerted Microsoft. We had Google and also these NASDAQ calls. Those ended up going for 30% each and made up for a lot of the losses. Netflix is literally the only stock that I have lost on multiple times recently, and now I am going to be a very big Netflix bear. No, I'm just kidding. But I mean, yeah, man, it's really interesting times. Oh, sorry, one more thing. I just want to thank everyone. We just broke 2,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is ridiculous. In the past month, we've gotten 500 new subscribers, which is crazy to me. I'm very, very thankful and happy that you guys are, seeing value in what I'm giving. And I'm very, very thankful and honestly humbled that you guys take the time out of your days to watch the videos that I post. And literally from the bottom of my heart, I just want to help you guys, teach you guys, do something that I did not have early on when I was trading. There was no one really doing what I'm doing. So I just want to extend my gratitude to you guys. And I will always be here, and we're just getting started. So in today's video, we're going to go over the major indices, the SPY, the NASDAQ, the QQQ, the IWM, the 30-year bond, and then, of course, we're going to go over the crypto market. So without further ado, let's get started. All right, so for complete transparency, obviously, we lost on Netflix twice, and then we were swinging Microsoft overnight. Those did not work out either, but then it was a small position, and we ended up buying more we ended up buying more Microsoft at the open. Those went up 30%. We also bought NASDAQ 382 calls. So the NASDAQ ended up shooting up to 387. So, they're currently still in the money. So we recouped our losses with these two plays as well as Google. So overall, it was another green day. We might have caught this bottom on the NASDAQ, but, before we continue talking about the NASDAQ, let's go ahead and talk about the SPY because, I just wanted to be transparent about these trades that we were making on Twitter. And I post all of these trades completely for free on Twitter every morning. I also post a watch list. All right, so let's get started with the SPY. All right, so the SPY. Just looking at this right now, we came back and retested this 50% fib level literally perfectly. We fell 13 cents below it, and we held this level of support at 465.56. But this is still not a bullish setup currently. What's most likely going to end up happening, in my opinion, is we might fall down below once more, retest this level of support, and then bounce up. But of course, I could be wrong, and that's why we're still holding on to NASDAQ calls. All right, so now if you look at the RSI, all right, let me just go ahead and turn that off. The RSI is flattening, even though we had a red day today, right? We technically are lower than we were yesterday, but the RSI flattened out. That is not a good sign because what we want to see instead is we wanted to have seen the RSI fall, okay? So the more weakness that the RSI shows on bearish moves, the more bullish it'll be for the SPY. Because right now, if the RSI is still holding up, as we can see here, it's still holding up, yet we had a red day, that's not a good sign, okay? So that is why I still think we might end up falling lower tomorrow. But, of course, that's why we're still holding some Microsoft and NASDAQ calls. And literally, the SPY was held up today by the financial sector as well as crude oil. So crude oil is up 2%. And crude oil has a very heavy weight in the SPY, which is the reason why the SPY did not completely just get destroyed today, right? Crude oil, now looking at crude oil, we had a very, very bullish day. You can see that the MACD just crossed above. This is extremely, extremely bullish on crude oil. So we are just now crossing above on the MACD, and we're breaking above multiple levels of resistance. So what this is signaling is basically a short term, we could continue rallying. And if we continue rallying, this will keep the SPY bullish. So essentially, crude oil needs to stay above $77. And if it does, then the SPY, regardless of what the NASDAQ or the IWM are doing, the SPY can continue moving upwards. But predominantly, the reason why the SPY did not, wrap itself, sorry for lack of a better term, was because crude oil helped it stay up. Okay, so right now, personally, I would hope, to be honest, that the SPY falls down a bit more so we could buy into some cheaper plays. It is a very, very bullish sign that the SPY MACD is very oversold. So that's a good sign. But the other thing is that we failed to cross above the 20 exponential moving average. As you can see, this was currently working as perfect resistance. And that level is basically going to be 470. 470 needs to be reclaimed on the SPY, and we need to close above 470 for us to basically be safe to go bullish completely again. All right. Until that happens, we're still going to be in limbo. We can still see some more downside due to this RSI flattening out. It's very, very bearish in my opinion. And usually when this happens, we do see some more downside. And we didn't even get to really retest any of this candle here. So that is another bearish signal. But of course, when things look very, very bearish, it's the perfect time to go bullish for, hedge funds and banks. But I mean, look at this. We held this level of support perfectly. We're in light swing positions for calls. So if we do go up, we're not going to miss out on any upside movement, which is going to be fine. So literally, there's the analysis for the SPY and crude oil. Now let's go ahead and take a look at what is going on with the IWM. All right, so the IWM, this is much, much more bullish. This is what we want to see. So essentially, we have a green day. We held multiple levels of support. This blue trend line, we monitor it. This 218.11 level, we also monitor it. And we also closed above the 22.6% fib at 217.19. So we held multiple levels of support and closed above them, much more bullishly than the SPY. So that's a very good sign. Also, you can see the RSI is moving upward, very, very slightly moving upward, but we crossed and closed above multiple levels of resistance. So that is, again, a much more bullish signal, as opposed to what the SPY did. We were, red on the SPY, but the RSI was stagnant. Over here, we closed above levels of resistance, and the RSI is pointing a bit upward. That is much more bullish. The other thing that's bullish is that the MACD is still oversold, which signifies there is still more room to the upside. And essentially, the main level of resistance for the IWM is going to be around 219.50 to 220. So if the IWM can close above 220, that is going to be very bullish. And now, essentially, we just need to key off of whether or not we can close above this 20 exponential moving average, because you can see that it also acted as resistance today. But essentially, 220 is going to be a very, very important level on the IWM. And again, it was the leading indice today, while the SPY and the NASDAQ were red. And yeah, so this is really it for my analysis on the IWM. We just need to see whether or not we can close above 220 and hold above 217.50. And currently that is the case. So there's my analysis on the IWM. Now let's go ahead and take a look at all of these different large cap tech companies, as well as the 30-year bond and the NASDAQ. All right, here's the 30-year bond. And I just want to explain something to you guys. Usually when a stock is falling like this, the RSI is supposed to basically sharply fall as well. But now the fact that we're still not oversold on the RSI is still 31.18, yet we vomited for the past few days on the 30-year bond. Again, that is not bullish, right? And another thing is that the MACD is starting to flatten out, yet the 30-year bond continues to fall lower. That is really, really not bullish at all. And I really do think that we're going to continue seeing some more downside on the 30-year bond. We have to key off of this, because this is a very, very important. This is probably one of the most important metrics that people will be watching. We crossed and closed below 157, which was a very, very important level of support. And now essentially we're at this important level of support here right now. So 155, you can see, it was a prior level of support. and we came back and retested it perfectly. So let me just go ahead and make that. Yep. So you can see that this is exactly where we bounced. So now, if we cross below that, I believe that the NASDAQ is going to go and make new lows. I'm going to show you that chart in a bit, but currently this is very, very bearish on the 30-year bond. And usually what happens is, even if the 30-year bond becomes bullish, right, the NASDAQ lags 1 day behind. So if tomorrow the 30-year bond is still bullish, the NASDAQ can still fall down lower. So this is not good. The MACD is flattening out. The RSI still is not oversold, and we're basically coming back and retesting this level of important support on the 30-year bond. All of those things are basically very, very bearish, and it's not a good sign. If 155.14 breaks, then I think the NASDAQ is going to fall even lower, which is what I hope, right? Because I want to buy these dips at a cheaper price, and we're going to catch the bottoms again. So yeah, essentially that would really play into what I think is going to end up happening on the NASDAQ. But of course, that's why we bought into some calls. So there's my analysis on the 30-year bond. Now I want to take a look at the large cap tech companies. So Google, you can see the RSI is flattening out as well. We had a bit of a red day. That's not the most bullish sign. For Google, we're trading outside of the lower level of the B band. Google is almost a $2 trillion company. And as you know, for very, very large companies and the SPY, QQQ, and IWM, when we are overextended outside of the lower level of the B band, what tends to happen algorithmically, the point of the Bollinger Band is to show overextension to the downside or the upside. And when there is overextension to the upside or the downside, algorithms begin to buy back, because what ends up happening is the price wants to return back to the mean. Okay, so it wants to return back inside of the Bollinger Band. So currently we had 2 days outside of the lower level of the B band. What we can see right now is the RSI is flattening out. What we wanted to have seen, just logically, what we would want to have seen is the RSI become sharply oversold in the past 2 days, but that did not happen. So we could see one more red day tomorrow. That would be completely normal. But again, you know, if we do bounce, it's good that we have some calls. But this, again, is not bullish. We made a new low today. If today's low breaks, then that would signal more weakness in the rest of the tech sector, in the rest of the NASDAQ. So essentially, Google is very, very overextended to the downside. Let's look at another really, really big company, Microsoft. Microsoft, very similar. 2 days outside of the lower level of the B band, we failed to hold this level of support. That basically, because I saw Microsoft at this level of support, it was basically the reason why I wanted to go long on the NASDAQ on December 20th. And I alerted that on Twitter. We made a bunch of money, and then we basically caught the last rally of the year perfectly. And I keyed off of Microsoft. So currently Microsoft is below that level, and it's trading at 314.45. So we did fill the gap today, though. We filled the gap that we had to fill here at 312.40. We ended up, you know, hitting a low of 311.50. So that's good. But essentially, if that level doesn't hold, we could have we could basically have one more red day. But then things would just be very, very overextended to the downside. And if they don't bounce back a bit, then that would be devastating for the market. So I do think tomorrow could be one more red day. I would really hope that these companies just gap down in the morning. And then if we gap down, then I'm going to buy, you know, the dip even heavier. And yeah, so essentially you can see that there's not much more downside to go. If you look at the Bollinger Bands, when we are this overextended to either the upside or the downside, they always want to return back to the mean. And because Microsoft is a very, very large company, it's very unlikely to be manipulated to be overextended outside of the Bollinger Band for too long. So essentially, you know, Microsoft is another case here. Amazon is very similar. You know, outside of the lower level of the B band. This is a very, very large company as well. So you're looking at all of these large tech companies, and essentially they're very overextended to the downside. So it basically begs the question, how much lower can they go before we start to bounce? So essentially, you know, we have to key off of the largest companies in the basket of stocks to see whether the NASDAQ can bounce. So the 30-year bond, Google, Microsoft, and Amazon are very, very overextended to the downside. If the 30-year bond continues to fall, then it's a wrap. It's over. But currently, we could potentially just have one more red day and then a bounce. So now let's go ahead and take a look at the NASDAQ, and we can maybe justify one more red day. So currently, you can see that it failed to cross and failed to close above 384.84. So that's number one. Number two is we had a red day today. The RSI is flat. That's another kind of scary signal, because we, you know, had two huge red days, but then yesterday and today, it didn't cause the RSI to fall again. So that is not a good sign. And that is why I think the NASDAQ should end up breaking down below 380. Hopefully, I really, really hope. Let me turn this on the log chart. I really, really hope that the NASDAQ breaks this trend line and, you know, goes down below 380, and then it would become overbought. It would become oversold on the Bollinger Bands. So that's why I think that we have one more day of red that would cause the Bollinger Bands to become oversold on the NASDAQ. And then all of the retail that bought into these dips very, very heavily yesterday, bought very, very heavily today on the dips, they would be essentially devastated, because if we have another huge red day tomorrow, a lot of people will lose a lot of money, and then that would be the perfect opportunity for banks and hedge funds to send the market to the upside. So ideally, what I want to see is the NASDAQ to come back and retest 377.50. That wouldn't, you know, I hope you guys got some profit off of the calls today. I'm still currently long the NASDAQ for calls expiring on the 31st. But again, you know, these dips are just amazing, and I want to see a repeat of overextensions to the downside, because when that happens, it is a very, very high probability trade. And over here, of course, that's what we do. We share high probability trades, and we only take high probability trades. But what is bullish technically for the NASDAQ is we closed above this trend line. It was the same trend line that I basically signaled long back on December 20th. We came back and retested this trend line perfectly. And we were oversold on the Bollinger Bands. So that basically was the reason why I felt very, very comfortable going long on the NASDAQ and alerting that to you guys. You can see that the MACD is much more oversold currently than it was back on December 20th. Not much more, but we're still technically lower on the MACD currently than we were back here. But the price is higher. Okay, so that basically means that we can see some more downside. Essentially, I really just want the market to fall a bit more so we could buy these dips a little cheaper. But yeah, honestly, all right, so now for the bullish case. If we start to break above 387 and 388 and close above 388 tomorrow on the NASDAQ, then, you know, any sort of bearish move is basically going to be invalidated. And then this 389.40 level is going to be very important for the NASDAQ. But of course, you know, we're always going to stay on the right side of the market. I could be completely wrong about my entire analysis, about everything that I just said. If these levels, you know, at the end of the day, you just have to trade the levels blindly. And that's what we've been doing. We've been making money the entire year so far. This whole week has been great. We called the short, we went long here, and I mean, it was beautiful. So now it's best to just be very patient and not lose all of the gains that we made this week. So there's my analysis on the overall market. I hope you can see why I think there is going to be a bit more downside. Of course, I could be wrong, but you know, there's the analysis on the overall stock market, crude oil, 30-year bond. And now let's go ahead and take a look at the crypto market. All right, Bitcoin, I still think we can potentially come back down and retest this trend line here. So the 39,500. But what is technically bullish is that we're holding above this 42,333 level. We wicked down twice here, and this level is basically holding pretty well. But again, it is very, very bearish that we had a vomit. We had an absolute vomit to the downside, but Bitcoin still could not become oversold on the RSI. So that basically means that there's still potential more room to the downside. So you have to be wary about that. The RSI is something that a lot of these crypto, banks and hedge funds that are basically looking at crypto right now, they key off of these technical indicators. So if the RSI is still showing bearishness, Bitcoin is going to potentially show that same bearishness. You can see that Bitcoin is trading outside of the lower level of the B band, and it is not bouncing currently as strong as it should be. So that is basically why I'm still overall bearish in the short term on Bitcoin. I mean, bearish for how much? $4,000 bearish? I mean, it doesn't really mean much in the long term view of what Bitcoin is going to end up doing. It's going to be at 100,000. So, but right now, short term, it looks very bearish. Long term, I'm super, super bullish on blockchain technology. So yeah, man, this is not a bullish setup. Essentially, this trend line is also needs to hold. Tomorrow, the level of support that needs to hold on Bitcoin, according to this trend line, is 43,000. If we can start closing above 43,000, then we can, come back and retest this trend line here, break above 44, and then be bullish. But all things are pointed to a vomit to the downside to test at least 40,000. And that is currently what I think can end up happening. That would make the RSI oversold, and that would be a much better buy opportunity. It would be much cleaner, but of course, I could be wrong. And yeah, there's that on Bitcoin. Let's go ahead and take a look at Ethereum. So Ethereum is lower than it was on this December 4th, a huge wick, right? Bitcoin wick down here. It's still holding above that level. But now Ethereum, where is it? Right here, it's trading below it. So that is not, it's obviously not bullish. And the fact, yeah, so it's not bullish. So you can see it's also trading outside of the lower level of the B band. We want to see some strength out of Ethereum. But currently we don't see that strength. And if today's lows doesn't hold, then, we're going to come back and retest this 3,200 level, and then potentially 3,000. If Bitcoin goes to 40, Ethereum can easily go to 3,000. So just be careful, be wary about that. Yeah, aside from that, the crypto market does not look bullish in the short term. It just doesn't look good. What you want to see is Ethereum break above this downtrend line. And currently we're comfortably trading below it. So, just be careful. Overall, the crypto market doesn't look bullish. Overall, I think the stock market falls another day tomorrow, hopefully. But, we make money in any market condition, and we are ready to adapt to anything. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys enjoy the content. Please make sure to like, subscribe, comment, do all that good stuff. I am literally very humbled by all of your support, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Thank you.